Good.
Okay, Pei Gimel. Mitzvah Pei Gimel. A mitzvah sholosh u'shmonim. There's a problem just in the translation. The way Ibn Tibbon goes, I'll read it, and then I'll read to you Kapach and Ibn Eov. In Ibn Tibbon, it goes, He shetzivonu lahovi kol hakorbanos hamutol aleinu. B'regel rishon sheyifka bonu misholosh ugolim. So the mitzvah is about korbanos. Okay? So l'cheira, it means to bring it to Shalayim and to be mock of them. As the Ram says, Shlo nakriv boy kol korban. That's ad shi'avoy olav echel misholosh golim. Shlo nakriv boy kol korban sheish boy oleinu lakriv. So the mitzvah is havo and akrovo and korbanos. So that's what it says. Okay. That is the way he goes. The problem is that in the original Arabic, there's no basis for this. The other Tirgumim is more rooted in the Arabic text. Ibn Ayov goes like this: Lahafrish kol hachukim shehem chovo aleinu. So it's not limited to korbanos; it's a broad thing. Lahafrish kol hachukim shehem chovo aleinu. Kapach lotzeis yidei hachiyuvim. It's all about the chiyuvim, and it's not limited to korbanos. Everyone agrees that the mitzvah includes korbanos. As the Ram says, el ukvar hikriv kol korban she'oyolov. It certainly includes korbanos, but kol hakukim, which is the Ibn Ayov, or kol hachiyuvim, includes, it's a broader rishima, a broader list of things, and that l'cheira is a reference to the Rambam at the end, because the Rambam says, as he continues, he says, domim, erchin, slomim, v'ekdeshos, v'lechet shikopeya. It's all the obligations that we have. And the Ram mentions it later. And what once you say it's chiyuvim or chukim and not limited to korbanos, it means everything is included in the mitzvah. Exactly what you would have expected. And that's what the text seems to say. Even though Ibn Ayov and Ibn and Kapach don't talk about Havor. However, everyone agrees that Havor is part of the Chiyuv. Chayiv, and he says as we continue, the Ram says, Chayiv ato lahovi kol korban sholecha. So this is certainly of interest, and the mitzvah is clear anyway that includes other things besides korbanos. And here it says, Hi shetzivonu lahovi kol hakorbanos hamutal malenu beregel horishon sheyifka bonu mishol shegom. The first of the three regalim, ad shelo yavo echod misholosh regalim. So the obligation is to fulfill those obligations prior to the termination. Ad shelo yavo echod misholosh regalim, prior to the termination of the regel. Now, it's very clear from the Ram over here that the obligation is to bring the korban or what the chukim or the chiyuvim prior to the end of the first regel. Okay. And if you look at the Gemara, that's the approach you would get also. The Gemara Rosh Hashanah, Dalid, Omer Aleph, Remeya Oimer, Kimet she'ova aleim regel echod, oiva bal ta'acher. But we don't pass in Remeya, but we say the regel echod is mevatel yaseh, but it's not the lav. And the assumption, the pasha of the Gemara is when you talk the difference between Remeya and the Rabbanon is only whether there's a lav or an aseh. And Remeya says a lav and we pass an aseh. But that the time should change, that it should not be with the termination of the first regel that we don't know. And the Pirush Mishnah of the Rambam is also like that in Rosh Hashanah, in Perek Aleph, Mishnah Aleph. Umishiyavo lov regel echo v'lo'ebi kom losan lemikdosh ovar bi'aseh v'omrei uvosa shomo v'hevesem shomo oiloi seichem. However, the Rambam in Mishnah Torah, in Hilchos Ma'aseh HaKorbanos, Perek Yudal Halacha Yud Gimel, Kloimar be'eis shetovo lochu tovi kol ma she'ata chayev bo v'titen kol chayev sholecha l'shom. At this point, you don't know anything. It's not clear that it's the end. It's not clear it's the beginning. You don't know what it is. Then he adds a few words. V'higia haregel, the first regel arrives. V'loi hevi, how is it bitul mitzvah? And the mashmol, so the Rambam is that the chiyuv is in the beginning of the regel, and the question is where it is and where to get this from, what it is. Okay, say this. Or the Rambam over here is very clear, and also in Pirush Mishnah and Pasha the Gemara Rosh Hashanah, that it's the end of the first regel. Ad shelo yavo lo echod misholosh regalim she'nakriv b'korban sheyesh olo leinu להקריב. Okay. There's a problem over here in the Talmud. Both here, Ibn Tibin and and Kapach Ikio the same. Is in Ibn Tibin, Ibn Ayoiv, it says Shelo nakriv boy kol korban sheyesh oleinu lahakriv. In Kapach el ukvar hikriv kol korban she'olav. Okay, it's very similar. Okay. However, Ibn Tibin does something, and he adds words which are not in the text at all, which are very problematic. Ibn Tibin goes like this: El shekvar hikriv kol echad mimenu kol korban shehoya olav. So what does he mean? Kol echod mimenu. It's not clear what it means, and probably you should accept their text because we don't know what exactly Ibn Tibbon means, and there's no basis for it in the original, at least the Arabic that we have, the Judeo-Arabic. Okay. Now, let's continue. See here, now we're talking about what is the source of the mitzvah. Which pasuk does it come from? V'omer yis'aleh, rei, l'sifnoi sidrushu, uvosa shomo, v'avesem shomo, o le'seichem. So the question is, what is the pasuk talking about? So let's go back and let's just see. The Ram says, "V'inyon zeh hatzivui sheyoymar kishetovoi shomo uvosa shomo." See, you could say uvosa shomo. You should go there. V'avesem shomo, and you should bring your korbanos. So the Ram says, no, you read it, Uvasa Shomo is when, not, it says, L'shichlis to the Uvasa Shomo, and when you come there, which is V'hu b'chol regel misholosh v'golim, V'avesem Shomo, Chayvat olahovi, kol korban shalecha. So Uvasa Shomo doesn't mean that you chayiv to come. Uvasa Shomo means when you come. Okay, very interesting shot and pasuk. And when you come is not when you personally come, when people generally come, means the regel. L'shichni sidushu Uvasa Shomo, when you come to be oil regel, then there's a mitzvah of avesem shomo, korban she'alecho, any korban, kol korban, avesem shomo, kol korban she'olecho. See again, this seems to go almost like the Ibn Tibbon, that the mitzvah is about Akovas Korbanos, because it says korban she'olecho. And any korban that you chayiv to bring, you have to bring it the first time, uvasa shomo. Whenever there's a mitzvah aliyah l'regel and you have to come there, is ve'vesim shomo or le'seichem. And or le'seichem is lav dafka. It means any korban which you have to bring. And it's very strange that even though uvasa shomo and ve'vesim shomo is both in the future, the past, future, when it's uvasa shomo, you will come and you will bring. Interesting. There's a change from the singular to the plural, uvasa shomo, ve'vesim shomo, and the pasuk is very interesting. Korban shalecha means any korban shalecha, and all the seichem is lav dafka. Now let's go back slowly but surely. The Rambam does something over here which frankly is a little difficult to understand and to swallow. The problem is, what does the Rambam want? L'shichne sidrashu. He could have said, Uvasa Shomo Vavesem Shomo, or Leseichem, and we would have been happy. And B'chlal, L'shichne Sidishu Uvasa Shomo, Pashtus Pshuta Shomiko. It's not nothing to do with the culmination of the first regel, but that we should have a special place for avodah, that we can come there and bring korbanos. So therefore, one should ask, how can we learn from this pasuk that there's an obligation, a mitzvah say, to bring all korbanos and to fulfill obligation by the first regel? So that I would suggest, and l'chera, it's pashut like that, is that the Ram brings the Sifri. Because without the Sifri, this pasuk is nothing. The Matiki Yashmur, V'loshin Sifri, Uvasa Shomo, V'vesim Shomo, Loma Ne'emar, L'kovom Chayvo, She'yaviam, Beregel Rishon, She'poga Boy. So it's very it's a foolishness Sifri that there's an obligation to bring your korbanos before the termination of the first regel. See, even though Pshuka Shel Mikra is that you should search and have a place for Akovas korbanos, but the Matiki Ashmur said, appears from I assume, that you're obligated to bring the korbanos before the termination of the first regel. And even though Uvasa Shomo, according to Pshuto Shomiko, is a tzivui, in the Matiki Ashmur, it's not a tzivui, but it's a time. Now, what it says is that this mitzvah is intertwined or tied in to Aliyah Regel. Because Uvasa Shomo, when you come for the Regel, you bring the korbanos. So, any mitzvah which is intertwined with Akovas korbanos is not noeg bizman hazeh, as the Ram says in the Akdama to Minyan HaMitzvos at the end of Sherish Yudalit. And even though the mitzvah is a broader mitzvah, l'kayim, the mitzvahs which are mutolas aleinu, but the ikar is the korban. It says alei seichem. And since there's no base of mikdash l'chayr, this mitzvah is not noeg. Bizman hazeh. And the shichnei sidishu v'asa shomo means, I guess, that we're coming up the regel according to them. And if since there's no aliyah regel, it can't be the zman of aliyah regel because no aliyah regel. The Ram says again that the zman is kishetovay shomo v'hu b'chol regel misholosh gol means aliyah regel. So it's another reason that the mitzvah is not noeg bizman hazeh. Because Aliyah Regel, the Ram says in the Siyum Mitzvah Aseh, Umehem gam kein mitzvahs einu noigis ella b'yois habayis kayim kagoyin chagiga v'riyah. It's Aliyah Regel. So this mitzvah, which is called, which is intertwined with Aliyah Regel, is also not noig b'zman hazeh. However, the Mishnah Melech in Hilchos Ma'aser Korbanos Perek Yudal Alachiyah Gimel assumes that this mitzvah is noig b'zman hazeh. Minchas Chinuch in mitzvah Tov Lamed Ches is discusses and this Mishnah Melech and then asks the questions, these questions. Okay, next. Now, we're not sure exactly what the words mean, Kishetovo Shomo. It means when you go there, or it means, and if you don't go there, you're not chayiv, or it means the time that people usually go for Aliyah Regel, even if you don't go. We don't know one way or the other whether you require the Regel b'mitzias or just the fact that it's the time that it's normally Aliyah Regel, so that's mechayiv. But if it's b'zman hazeh, well, there's no Aliyah Regel, so there's no mechayiv. Next. So that's the Sifri. Re Piska Samach Gimel Oizvov. Uvos Shomer Vesim Shomer. Loma Nema Lekov Mcheva. Shiavim Beregel Rishon Shepoga Boy. V'Shom Nema Einu Oivo Lov Mishum Bal Ta'acher Ad Shiavoiru Olov Rigle Ashona Kulo. Kloima, Kishav Olav, Shosh Gom Loy Hevi. Oz of Alav. If it's 3 regolim, you violate the lav. Viulam, Kishav Olav, Regel Echod. Hine Oval, Al Aseh Levad. The Aseh is 1 regel, and the lav is 3 regolim. So again, as we said before, that even though Pshuto Shel Mikra, there's no mitzvah to bring the korbanos in the first regel, but that's what the Matiki Shmuel say, and they're the kevei and minyan mitzvahs. And the Rambam later on brings also the source from the Gemara Rosh Hashanah, besides the Sifrei. My timer, Reb Meir, see what was the Shomer, Vesim Shomer. Omer Achmono, Omer Achmono, Ki Asis. When you come, I say, bring the korban. That's what we paskin like. So this is an Aseh. That's what the Matiki Shmuel said, the Rabbanan say. A third source of this mitzvah is the Sifra, Parshas Emor, Parsha Yud Beis, Perek Tezvov, Aloch Aleph. Loma Nema, Eile Tasu Lashem B'Moadechem, Elokov Mcheva Shiavo B'Regel Kulam. You have to bring all the korbanos when you get to the first regel. Eila tasu Hashem amoadechem. Eila tasu, you have an obligation to bring all your chayvus before the end of the regel. Now let's continue. Gemara Rosh Hashanah, Dalma Beis, Rabbi Meir Oimer, Kiven she'over olov regel echad over bal ta'acher. V'ne'emar b'Talmud, my time in the Rabbi Meir, tichsivu vosa shoma v'vesem shoma. Omer Rachmona ki Isis, Aseh. Rabbanan al-hu li'aseh li'osa. So interesting, in Xavier Oxford, I'm just it's an interesting Girsa issue, and that's Bloch, and in Ibn Tibin it says Rab Meir, and in Xavier Kapach it says Rova. And in Ibn Ayyub, it's Rabba. Interesting. So I assume there were different messiahs over here in Rambam. Okay. And then, yeah. Kiven she'over olav regel echod over b'bal ta'acher. That's also Xavier Oxford and Ibn Tibin. But in Kapach, Xavier Kapach in Ibn Ayyub, it's Omerova, Kiven she'over olav regel echod over b'aseh. Which is, okay, Beseda. But whatever it is, we're interested in the Aseh, whether it's the Rabbanon or okay, whatever. Hine, Kvai his boya, Kish She'omu, Bevesim Shomo, Mitzvah Aseh, Vuhu Shiovi, Kol ma olav mechuke hokel v'yifta mehem. So here, there's no machlekes about what the translation is, so it's a little odd, the beginning, the end, because everyone listened to the different translations. Mamish almost the same. In Ibn Tibin, it says mechuke hokel. In Ibn Ayyub, mechuke Hashem. Not the big difference, the question how you translate the probably Allah, whatever it is, okay? And the in Kapach, mechivoisov l'Hashem. So it's all obligations to God. So it's very clear from this part of the statement that the mitzvah is lavdaf for korbanos or any obligation. V'yifta mehem b'chol regel. V'yifta mehem b'chol regel. That's Ibn Tibin. V'yotzi'im me'itoi. I guess from the obligation. V'yotzi de chavosai. It means to fulfill your obligation before in each regel. Bain, now it's very, if you didn't have it, you won't. That wasn't explicit enough. Bain, mine korbanos, kulam. So that's Oloi Seichem. Oi domim, ve'elchin, ve'charomim, ve'ekdeshes, ve'leket, ve'shikcha, upeya. It's also Yidei Chayvosai מאלה החוקים כולם, ברגע ראשון שפוגע בוי, מצעשה, כמו שהסבויה בגמור בראש השונה. So it means, that's what you get from the Gemara Rosh Hashanah, that all you have to fulfill all your obligations, not only korbanos. So, midi korbanos kulam, it's mafurish in the pasuk. V'veisem shomo, olisechem, v'zivchechem. But the question, v'es ma'as olisechem, v'es tumas yetchem, v'nidrechem, v'v'sechem, v'koris b'kalchem, v'tzoinchem. So let's just go through it and see what we're talking about. Ma'as olisechem certainly includes ma'aseh behema, because bekalchem v'tzoinchem is b'chol behema tehera. Bekalchem v'tzoinchem. Excuse me. U'b'cheres bekalchem v'tzoinchem is b'chol behema tehera. Then it says, very strange, Bekalchem b'tzoinchem includes chatos v'ashomois, and that's the sifri. In Re'ei Piska Samach Gimel, Masoi Seichem, Rebbe Kiva Oime b'shnei Maisa Kosa Medaber, Echad Maisa Dogam v'Echad Maisa Behemo, U'v'choyrei Ze B'cho Bekalchem v'tzoinchem, excuse me, ובחיירס זה הבכור, בקלכם בצאינכם, אלו חטוס והשומריס. So at the moment, we have all different types of korbanos, Maaseh behema, b'chayres, and a ribui from Chatas V'Osham. Now, there's an inclusion in the list. There's other things, Domim ve'Elchin. Domim, l'chvei is a flaw of Domi alai. Elchin is Elchi alai. And you're obligated, according to this, to bring it to the Mikdash. To bring it to Yerushalayim, excuse me. And to put them in the Lishkas, Berek Abayis. As the Ram says, in Hilchos Elchin B'Chromim, Perek Aleph Halacha Yud. Now, maybe Hafrosha should be enough to Mekayim the Neder. So, that's not necessarily true at all, because there's a chiyuv achrayis in Elchin Achromim ad shegili ad gizbo. As the Ram says in Uchos Elchin v'Charomim, Perek Gimel Yud Gimel, Hamafish Elkoi, Oy Domov, V'nigdavui, Oy Ovdoi, Afal Pi Shloi Omar Olai, Chai B'Achiyusam. He says, this is, he doesn't say Olai, he says, the Domim, this is the, you know, it's Zu, this is the, Achi Giu Liad Gizbo, Shneema, V'nosan es El Kocho Bayomahu, Kodesh Lashem, Hari Hein Chulin, אף על פי שהפרישון עד שהגיע ליד גזבו. So we understand that you don't fulfill your obligation of the Eilchin and the Chalomim until they come to Yad Gizbo. But Elke Behemoth Tmeya and Elke Batim and Elke Sodois, they require pidyon al yedei bezdin, and the chol has nothing to do with avor. So, if there's a mitzvah, the mitzvah is to bring the pidyon. It's after pidyon, because before pidyon, nobody's supposed to. You need bezdin in order to be marachet. So you have to know. Okay. See here, the question is, I think my precious Rosh Hashanah, that the mitzvah includes these things, but how this happens, we don't know. Unless the kibbutz Kabbalah. Lechet Shikl is even more difficult. And the reason why it's very difficult, because in Lechet Shikl the mitzvah is Aziv al Aniyim. What does it mean? That Aniyim can take them. It's you leave it b'mechuba, and the Aniyim take them. And there's no mitzvah of Nesin al Aniyim. It's just to put them at the disposal of the Aniyim. So you're not supposed to do anything. So what's the problem over here? And the mitzvah Aziva says even Mekoimon. And there's no Nesina. Havesim Shalom is l'cheira that which is chukim shechayim, that there's a mitzvah Nesina or something. Taisus Rosh Hashanah, Dalet Amud Beis, Dibur Maskal Lechet Shikl Peah, interprets that it must be that someone violated the lav, and after you violate the lav, there's a chiv nesin l'aniyim. So the whole case of Lechet Shikl Peah is a person violated the lav, and he's trying to bring it to Yerushalayim. Ova v'kotzer es kol asode, oi, as the Ram says in Hilchos Matnas Aniyim, Perek Aleph Halacha Beis, Kshem shemaniach besode kach bilonus, kshoyis perisei maniach matlanim. Ova v'kotzer es kol asode, oh, osaf, kol peris, hoi ilon, lokeach ma'at, mima shekotzer, o mima sheosaf, v'noisen laniyim. Shenesinose mitzvahs aseh, shenema lo'one lageh tazeh v'oisom. Afil tochan akemach v'loshem v'chulei v'chulei. So it's very nice. So the mitzvah, the Ram's talking about the Zaniyim in a case where he violated the law, and that's the whole mitzvah. Very strange. And but even the new Kiddush, that even in Lechet Shikl Peah, you violate the law, there's the Chad Nesina, Chiv Nesina, but there's certainly no obligation. What's the obligation to bring it to Yerushalayim? The Rambam here doesn't talk about Lechet Shikl Peah, but doesn't talk about Maisris and Trumos. But l'cheira, the post says Ma'asoi Seichem Utrumas Yetchem. So one would have assumed that you have to bring the Trumas and Ma'aseh to the Mikdash. And that you don't need him a call for to state in Pasuk. Because if Matan Zanim, or even more so, if Matan Zanim or B'chal, and there's no Avos Mokim, Ma'aseh Sheni, which is a mitzvah Avos Mokim, it certainly should be in the mitzvah. The Rambam in Mishnah Torah writes Maisres. In Uchos Maiseh Korbanos, Perek Yudalid, Halacha Yud Gimel. Echad Nedorim and Nedovos, Im Shar Advorim She'odam Chaye Bohen, Me'elchin, V'domim, U'Masrois, U'Matnes Aniyim, Mitzvahs Aseh, Min HaTorah, Shiovi, Hakol Berego. So maybe the Rambam is, when he means Masrois, he's Koil Ma'aseh Sheni. The Sifri, remember we quoted before, Masar Serem V'Kiva Oimer, B'Shnei Ma'aseh Sakos Medaber, Echad Ma'aseh Dogon, V'Echad Ma'aseh Behema. So what happened to Trumos? The Ram Mishnah says Ma'asros. So it is possible that the Ram sometimes says Ma'asros and he means Trumas and Ma'aseh. Sometimes he says Trumas and Ma'aseh, so this is Ma'aseh and it means Trumas and Ma'aseh. Maybe it's okay. Interesting is the Ramban in Re'eh Perek Yud Beis Posik Vov Al Derech HaPshat says Ma'aseh Seichem Utrumas Yetchem is Ma'aseh and Trumos. And the Kavodas HaTorah is that you bring Trumas and Ma'aseh to Yerushalayim M'Shosei HaMikdash Kohen Levim. It's a new din. But Chazal interpret Trumas Yetchem in a different way. The Sifri says, Sifri in Re'eh, Samoch Gimel, and Yushalmi Bikuim, Perek Beis, Halacha Beis, that Trumas Yetchem is Bikuim. The Ram doesn't mention any of this. Chesed, I don't know. Now, there is two mitzvahs Aseh and a mitzvah lo Aseh. The mitzvah Aseh here is Pei Gimel, is the Kaima Chiyuv Matoim Regel Rishon. And when you learn from this possible, Beisim Shomo, or the Seichem, V'yas Ma'aseh Seichem, V'yas Trumas Yetchem, V'yas Seichem, V'yas Seichem, V'chulei, V'chulei. V'chaltem, V'smachtem, V'chol Meshach. Mitzvah lo Aseh. Excuse me, there's two mitzvahs. Excuse me, there's a mitzvah Aseh and a mitzvah lo Aseh. Mitzvah lo Aseh, Kuf Nun Hey. If you don't Mekayim, that's Kuf Nun Hey. If you're not Mekayim, at the end of 3 Regolim, you violate the lav Baal Ta'acher. Ki sido neder L'Hashem Elokecho, Lo Yisa'acher L'Shalboi. As the psukim, the subject of the lav and Aseh are very different. The Aseh is an obligation to bring certain things to the Mikdash. The lav of L'Yisachar L'Shalmoi is talking about fulfilling your neder. Kisido neder Hashem. And that Chazal put them together is Mamish and Pella. So when we get to the lava mitzvah Hashem, we'll have to deal with this. Let's, a few minutes, let's get started and just introduce the next mitzvah, mitzvah Pei Dalet. Mitzvah ho'arba u'shmonim, he shezivoru להקריב כל הקרבנות בבית הבחירה לבד. ואומר יסעלה ושום תעשה כל אשר אנכי מצווך. It means to be makriv beis hamikdash. And here, you have to understand, it's a very interesting thing. The Ram has an arichus, and you have to work this through. Arichus about the lav, and what the Aseh is, what the Aseh includes, and what the lav includes. And it's very clear that the Aseh includes everything. All kabbalah, chom tase kol asher anochi mitzaveko. But the lav, it seems to be about oilos. And the Rambam over here is very much marich. And to explain that the lav also includes everything. The lav of our schutz. That's what he says. Shah kochi minayin, he says. Ainly, I'm just reading a little bit just to get us into it, so we'll pick it up next week. Oiles, Shah kubli neder, Shah kochim minayin, tamaloim v'shom tase, kol asher anuchi mitzaveko. V'adayin ni oimer, oile basei, v'loi say, all this pasuk only an asay, but it's mufush that there's an asay for this pasuk. Shah kochim lo yiyu ela basei, tamaloim v'shom tase. V'chulei, k'mo she'evayv m'koimish l'daber ashola. V'inyin omrom, oila b'aseh, v'lo yisaseh, shia mi she'ikriv, oila b'chutz, oive al mitzaseh, v'al mitzas lo yisaseh. On the mitzloseh, omroi pentalo, yisechaz l'difulot, v'al mitzaseh, oive v'shom taseh, so mitzaseh, timakim v'mikdosh. And there's an Isa, Timakim Chutz Mikdash. And Mitzvah Hashem, we'll finish this and pick this up maybe next mitzvah after that, we know the next week.